So we have Diane Turnshek joining us, and I am going to just set up the screen to have her information. And you have a bright light directly behind your head. If there's anything you can, there, center your, yes, we are doing much better. Okay, I just need to set up the lower thirds. Thank you, everyone, for giving Annie a warm, happy, I don't know what this set of words is, encouragement to continue discussing space poop. I, for one, came for the science and stayed for the space poop. How often do you get to say sentences like that? All right. So as a reminder, 365 days and my video has frozen. Oh man. Okay. It's back. It's back. We are a community contributed podcast where our audio comes from a fabulous set of volunteers, and our funding to keep it all going comes from a fabulous set of volunteers. And joining me now is one of the voices that has been with us across these years. I am so pleased to have you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How about you?
I can hear you as well. So let me get you on screen. You have an adorable workshop with an adorable doggo.
Yes, puppy. You may be distracting.
So you keep moving out of center and off screen. There. Perfect. Okay. So you are a university faculty member, you are a writer, you are a dark skies activist. I didn't even know what to put under your name. You wear so many hats, and it's an honor to have you here with us. Please tell us more about you and what brought you to 365 Days of Astronomy.
I did astronomy. I started when I was 7 years old. I wanted to do astronomy. I mean, very young. But I was an armchair enthusiast. So I was one of those people that just read about astronomy.
Right.
Never had a telescope. Never went outside really and looked up. But I went to Villanova University as an undergrad, and they have telescopes and you get to observe.
And where is Villanova, for those who don't remember?
Outside of Philadelphia, but far enough outside back in the 70s that it was dark enough to do actual research. We were looking at eclipsing binary stars and writing papers with the faculty because there were no grad students in the level between the undergrads and the faculty. So we did a lot of work there. And then graduate school, I went to the University of Arizona. It's Tucson, beautiful dark skies.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic Milky Way. Kip Peak is right there.
Yeah.
So I did an observational master's degree. And at that point, we moved to Pittsburgh. I had a job at Allegheny Observatory, but I ended up having a little baby boy who was so beautiful.
Oh.
Like I couldn't, after all that schooling and all that work and all that since 7 years old, I was just like, I'm done. I'm not working.
Yeah.
I stayed home. And I stayed home for the next little baby boy and the next little baby boy and the next little baby boy. So then I went back to work because it was easier.
Yes.
So I started by teaching everywhere, just doing adjunct faculty positions, 7 different schools at the same time.
Oh, which is the life of an adjunct, unfortunately.
Because you have to if you want to make enough money.
Yeah.
So I was adjuncting for someone who was on sabbatical and he never came back. And so they just said, would you like his job?
Why, yes, I would. That is the only correct answer.
That's right. So I am now at Carnegie Mellon University in the physics department there. And I also still teach at Pitt, astronomy at Pitt, which is nice. Those days when I was out under the dark sky, I kind of forgot them. All the decades that had passed, I kind of forgot what a beautiful sky looked like.
Yeah.
And then I went out to the Mars Desert Research Station, which is
Oh,
near Hanksville, Utah. It's run
yeah.
by the Mars Society. It's a simulated Martian colony.
Yeah.
So you go there, there were 6 of us in this little habitat, and you have to live in these cramped quarters and wear spacesuits outside through an airlock.
And it's desert.
It's red rock, no vegetation, desert.
Yeah.
You're up at a high altitude. And it was so beautiful. You're suffering because you're eating that dehydrated food, and you're doing Navy showers, which are like, are you wet? I don't know. And, water rationing.
Yeah.
And I was using the Musk Observatory, Elon Musk, which was very cool. And I loved it. Oh my goodness, I loved it so much.
So we're getting a couple questions that I want to interrupt you to ask. Did your spacesuit have a cooling vest?
We were there at Christmas time.
So did it have a heating vest?
Below zero. No, it did not.
Oh,
it had
no.
nothing. It
Oh,
was
no.
freezing.
That's horrible. Horrible.
But we got to ride dune buggies, so we weren't really just walking everywhere.
Okay. That's not too bad.
Definitely worth it. I recommend it for anybody. I literally did it because I'm a science fiction writer, and I wanted to make my stories very realistic.
Now, I have to admit, I know you as a science fiction writer more than anything else. And the first day back in 2009 that you asked if you could contribute, I squeaked so loud everyone around me heard. So tell our audience about what all you have gotten. And you are a prolific writer. Tell our audience what all you have gotten to write.
So what I appreciated when I was home with the boys is that I'm not very good at just doing this, just twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah.
And so I wrote science fiction because you can do that while you're home.
Yeah.
So that was my goal. I mostly write for Analog Magazine, which is the longest running science fiction and fact magazine in the world. And very scientific. Everything is just really nuts and bolts, and you have to be accurate. My first story, Stanley Schmidt was the editor, and he wrote me this huge letter that was like, "Are you sure those birds are indigenous to South America?" I'm like, "You are that picky that a bird flew through my scene?" And
but Analog is like legit. It and the Amazing Stories, which I think went defunct in the 70s maybe, and Asimov are like the 3 big ones. And to be published in Analog, that's kind of like on my list of things that I hope to do before I die. And you've done it.
It's my favorite. But I didn't actually write a whole lot. What I found was that I like to run things.
Uh-huh.
And so I started a workshop for teenagers called Alpha, which is science fiction, fantasy, and horror 2-week residency workshop here in Pittsburgh.
Uh-huh.
And teens come from all over the world. And we always have phenomenal guests. And that's been running 18 years now. Now I started a small press. Triangulation is an anthology of stories. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is this year I took it back as the editorship, and I'm doing the stories about dark skies, a light pollution anthology. And it is so cool. The stories that came in, creative, beautiful. We have hundreds of submissions. We're still going through them now. For instance, a fantasy story. Peter Pan comes down, gathers up the lost boys, and then he can't go back to Neverland because he can't see the second star to the right.
That's brilliant.
Every one of those stories that we're picking, they're just like so creative and so good. I'm really happy about it. So it's an astronomy themed anthology, but it's science fiction, fantasy, and horror stories.
That is awesome. Now Dark Skies is one of those super. I did my PhD and master's at the University of Texas. And when I first moved to Austin, it was a significantly smaller city. This was before the .com thing happened. I moved there in 98. .com was like a phrase, but people were like, dot? Seriously, you're going to say dot people? You were still getting mocked for saying dot in a URL. But when I first moved there, you could see a whole variety of nebula with binoculars. There was planetary nebula available to see. It was amazing in 98. But by the time I finished my degree in 2002, all of that was gone. The city had tripled in size. The dot-com boom had happened, and it had busted horribly. But that didn't take away the light pollution. It just took away the industry. And on the East Coast, it's been even more. And in Pennsylvania, where you're an industrial city, or industrial state, what changes have you seen over the years?
It used to be that whenever you stepped outside whatever building you were in and looked up, you could see the Milky Way on a clear night. That's how it used to be. And the children today don't realize that. They think this ever-present glow in the sky is normal.
Yeah.
They don't miss it because they've never had it.
Right.
I even have students that are studying astronomy who've never seen the Milky Way. And it's really a tough thing. How do you even want to study stars if you can't see them?
Yeah.
From the East Coast, that megalopolis, the Washington to Boston corridor, you can probably see a dozen stars and a couple of planets if you're lucky, and the moon. So people in Philadelphia, for instance, the astronomy clubs there, they're very proud of what they do, and they do what they can, and they bring in hundreds of people every year and show them Saturn and show them the moon, and they don't moan and groan about it. They just do the best they can, and that's a great attitude. But I can't have that attitude because I want to change the world and I want to make things darker. So I got elected to the IAU Commission for protecting existing and potential observing sites, including radio frequency interference. And that, with Connie Walker, that we're trying to do global things, but all politics is local.
Yeah.
Now, I've gone to see my senators and congressmen in Washington, and they only want to know about their constituents, their voters in their areas. So I decided to take it to Pittsburgh because that's where I live. So I was on the transition team for the new mayor, Mayor Peduto. He's not new anymore, but when he was, and he remembered me.
Oh, wow.
About the street lights, and when they got an opportunity to get a grant to do public education about astronomy and light pollution, I curated 3 space art galleries because I thought that'll bring people in and we'll just talk about light pollution. And I set up a lecture series at the observatory, and I started a chapter of the International Dark Sky Association here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They don't want to do chapters anymore. They want to do whole states. So we're just a section. Pittsburgh is just a section now, which is okay.
So do they not realize that some states in our country are bigger than countries in Europe?
Yes. They want to do it differently. They want to make them all LLCs, and it's a structure that makes sense. And you can still have branches and sections. And ours is hundreds of people big. So it's powerful. We're doing so much in Pittsburgh. The main project that we're doing is this drone project. So I figured everybody likes drones. My 4 sons like drones. So why don't we use drones to fly over the city of Pittsburgh and make a very detailed light pollution map and tag every street light and make sure we know where everything is and what the big spread is. And we can even put a diffraction rating on the lens of the drone and get spectra so we know what type of light all the lights are.
And so you're looking down, which is pretty unique. Most people look up to measure how much light is in the sky, but you're instead going, I'm just going to figure out who the criminals are I specifically.
I do exactly want to pinpoint the hot spots. That's not really the International Dark Sky Association's way. That's why they call it dark sky, because that's a friendly term as opposed to light pollution, which is that you're doing a bad thing here.
Well,
they want to be very positive about everything. And I do get that, but I also want to pinpoint the hot spots. Who is doing all this light polluting? I want to know.
mm-hmm.
And the FAA on board. They gave us this, pass. You can do your
awesome.
drone flights over the city. The city wants us to do it because they're changing street lights. They're changing 40,000 street lights from high pressure sodium vapor to LEDs.
And are they doing the evil blue LEDs, or are you working with them on the you're working with them on the spectrum? That's awesome. So explain this problem to people, because a lot of folks are just like, oh my God, LEDs last forever. They use no electricity. How great is this? And it's like, no, they're also a wee bit evil. So explain the problem.
So Rayleigh scattering is the fact that blue light scatters more easily than red light.
Yeah.
Simple physics. Blue light has short wavelengths. That's why the sky's blue.
Yes.
Light comes in from the sun, scatters all over. What you do if you put in too hot of LEDs is you get terrible scatter everywhere, and the light is unfriendly looking. New Yorkers have to deal with this. They say it looks like a prison yard. A lot of people hate that harsh, glary light.
Yeah.
And so we've agreed with the city of Pittsburgh, we're going to do shielded lights, 2,700 Kelvin or below, and dimmable. So if there is an accident in the area, you can brighten the lights, but you don't really need them bright all the time, because you can have lights on your cars. People have flashlights in their pocket with their phones, their flashlights.
Yeah.
They need light. They got light. So the thing people sometimes don't understand is the color temperature, right?
Yeah.
When I say 2,700 Kelvin, that's a cool light, but it looks amber, and people think of that as a warm light, like an amber colored light is warm.
So
but it's the opposite.
We screw people up when they're children, because every little kid at some point is told, color the cold things blue, children, and color the hot things red. And that is the opposite of how reality works, because if your stovetop is red hot, you're not going to melt your pan, you're going to cook your food. If your stovetop is blue hot, something really wrong has occurred, and you're probably going to catch on fire shortly. So back away. Yeah, red is cool, blue is hot. We have totally misnamed our colors.
Yeah, it's very hard for me because my sink knobs are blue for cold and red for hot, and I'm always doing the wrong thing, freezing cold fingers. I guess ice and water is blue, but it's not. That's the thing. It's like ice is not blue.
Glaciers are fabulously blue because of how they refract the light. It's internal scattering, just like reflection nebula are blue. But that has nothing to do with the temperature. That's just the optical properties. And hell, my fish tank does the same thing if I don't clean it often enough.
It's green.
Well, it will actually scatter blue if you put too much food in it and then look at it sideways. Don't do this. Your fish will hate you, and you'll have to do a sudden water flush. But back to science. So you're flying these drones. I imagine you doing a grid formation over the city.
Yes, because Pittsburgh's grid city, right?
Yeah.
All the streets are like first, second, third, fourth, and then First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue.
Right. And
Pittsburgh is, here are the cow paths, and they just paved the cow paths. That's what Pittsburgh is. It's going to be really hard to do this, but we're programming the drones with an iPhone app that's free for anybody. So all cities can do this. We got off-the-shelf drones. They're Mavic 2 Pros, fantastic cameras. So anybody could buy the drones, use our same iPhone apps, and do the grid pattern. So it'll move, it'll stop, take 3-second exposure, move, stop, take 3-second exposure. And then these are overlapped and stitched together afterwards. So we've done tests so far. We've done test flights. We've gone to dark sites and bright sites and compared, and we don't want to wash everything out, but also we want to pick up the dark. And it's all working beautifully. I'm super happy with it. Volunteers. So the FAA made us train watchers, so 2 watchers with each drone and a pilot, a licensed, registered, insured pilot in every vehicle. And then the watchers, there's a flashing green light on top of the drone that flashes occasionally because it's nighttime. And you're required to keep the drones in sight, but this is a very bright flashing green light. So we won't take pictures while it's flashing, but the drone watchers can still see it. And each vehicle has to do it at the same time, right? We can't have a big moon.
Right.
You can't have puddles because then you get weird reflections.
Yes.
It's got to be not when it's super cold. Like this winter was rough because the drone batteries don't last long enough. If you try to fly when it's like 20 degrees, you're going to get 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Lucky. And it's also a little bit difficult through the middle of buildings, tall buildings, because you get a lot of reflection for the controlling the drones. So the watchers are really necessary. I mean, the drones have object avoidance systems, and they will just come back home if they run into trouble. But it seems like what the hardest part is going to be the topology. Yeah. So Pittsburgh goes from 1,200 feet down at Mount Washington down to the 700-foot level at the Ohio River.
Oh, God.
And the whole city is like that. It's like 500 feet up, 500 feet down.
And do you need to keep the drones at a constant altitude relative to the land or relative to the sea, relative to the land? That makes more sense because that gives you constant relative to how far you are from streetlights and, oh, good Lord.
So it's 400 feet up. We're just going to stick right under 400 feet up.
Now,
whatever happens. Whatever the ground does, we're doing.
Now, Pittsburgh is one of the great classic American cities, and over the years, it's not Philadelphia right on the ocean with the amazing port. Pittsburgh is much more of an industrial city. It has a very diverse socioeconomic structure, a lot like we have here in St. Louis. You're racially super diverse. Are you working to try and educate the city before you get these drones are loud? Even the quietest of drones is loud. Are you working to educate the city and get like meteorologists involved or anything?
So my students want to put speakers on the drones and have them say, "Do not be alarmed. You are in a safe place."
Oh no.
They're so funny. But no, actually what we're doing, we're having a big meeting June 1st. A Dark Skies meeting. And the website just went up and I'm all excited about it. We're screening the new documentary, Saving the Dark.
Oh, excellent.
It's not available any other way except if you do one of these educational screenings. I've put in to ask an astronaut to come because who better than to say what it looks like from space? Like you want them to be able to say, that's $3 billion of wasted energy and light. And what are you doing, people? So it's tough to educate the public. First of all, they think brighter is safer.
Yeah.
We've had a million years of evolution to make us afraid of the dark. And it really is the kind of thing that you have no wild animals in the city. You have street lights, you have other lights, you have your phone, you don't have big holes and branches while you're running from the animals. Like, you don't have to be afraid of the dark anymore. And crime does not correlate with the brightness. In fact, some places it's an inverse correlation is showing up. Like, if only dark places were lit, then no gas stations or 7-Elevens would get robbed, right?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have that. So safety, it's a big thing. Glare is bad.
Yeah.
LEDs are very directional. Yeah. So when they are aimed right at you, especially older people, the irises close up. Yeah. And so it takes longer for them to open up again and become dark adapted. So Students don't really get this as much
Yeah.
as older people do. Glare is bad. Glare is a danger.
Yeah.
So all those bright LED billboards and things, that is dangerous, and we really
Yeah.
need some ordinances against those. So safety, it's bad for the nighttime ecosystem. Like
Yeah.
it's bad for plants. If you have trees near a streetlight, they leaf out, and then a frost comes. They leaf out too early in the spring because they think, oh, our
We've got
photosensors are
light.
saying it's summer.
Right.
It's bad for animals, mating, predation, foraging. Like it ruins the nighttime habitats they have. They're sea turtles, little sea turtle hatchlings. Everybody's heard of that part.
Yeah.
But close to 1 billion birds a year die because of light pollution.
Well,
So,
and there's been some tragic mistakes with the Twin Towers Memorial in New York City. They've turned on these staggeringly beautiful towers of light reaching up into the heavens, but migrating birds who navigate by the moonlight will get caught in these pillars of light and just exhaust themselves flying in circles. And so they have to periodically turn off the beams of light so the birds can escape. And we don't think of that, but this is our reality.
and it's going to come out that it's bad for people too.
Yeah.
I did a TEDx talk. Maybe I shouldn't
Excellent.
say this on.
No. Go ahead. Promote your TEDx talk.
They told me I wasn't allowed to talk about medical issues for humans because I'm not a medical doctor. And
That's
so
fair.
like the night before, I had to take out like a whole bunch of my talk and like put in other stuff. It was very difficult.
Man. There are reasons why iPhones have added a nighttime color changing feature so that those of us who check our email right before we go to bed actually go to sleep. And the contents of the email wasn't the only problem, it turns out.
Yes.
Now let's look at the positive side of this. What's the darkest sky you've ever seen?
I was on Mauna Kea like 4 years ago, and that was just fantastic in Hawaii. It's up so high. It's up above a third of the atmosphere, and people in Hawaii recognize that they have a national treasure there,
Yeah.
and so they're very careful about lighting. I've never been to the Atacama Desert. I've heard that's even better.
Yeah.
That's a goal of mine. Here in Pennsylvania, the best spot is called Cherry Springs. It's a state park. But where I take the students every year from CMU, I put a busload of 60 students and take them to what used to be the National Radio Observatory, but is now just called the Green Bank Telescope
Yep.
facility. And it's surrounded by mountains, and no one lives there, partly because you're not allowed to have a cell phone or
Right.
a microwave.
Or Wi-Fi.
Right. So it's kind of clear to people, and it's very dark. One of my students said, we were out walking at night, and he said, this is like walking in a freakily large planetarium, but I'm never hitting the wall.
Yeah, that's an accurate description.
All right, but you wanted happy. Okay.
That's happy.
This is an easy problem to solve. How about that? That's happy.
Yeah.
Turn them on.
And everyone out there listening needs to, at least once in your life, if you are able, and I understand not everyone is able, but if you are able, you need to go camping or otherwise stay up late in a dark site, whether it be a national park, a dark sky preserve, or being out at sea when they shut off all the lights on the boat. And that occasionally happens in the military. Military people are the ones that I've heard that have seen the darkest skies. Annie is laughing in the corner. It doesn't happen very often, but they do turn the lights off occasionally. So once in your life, see someplace dark. You will not regret your choices. Now, if people want to go see all the stuff you have to share, where do they need to go?
I put together a website called pghconstellation.com.
Uh-huh.
It's for Pittsburgh. anyone who's an astronomy enthusiast and wants to go to a star party or see a talk or take a class or buy a telescope, whatever they want to do that has to do with astronomy, it's all on this one website. We made a map of Pittsburgh and we put stars where all the, the planetarium, the observatories and things, and then that's our Pittsburgh constellation.
That is
excellent. I hope other cities would do that too, and then we'd have lots of constellations so that traveling astronomy buffs could go to place and always have a site that said, if you like astronomy, don't miss this.
Okay, so this is something I want to collaborate with you on. We need to make this happen. This is awesome. Now, I'm streaming for 10 hours today. I am quite likely going to forget this moment in time, and that does not make this this is an amazing idea. Please, 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 all of you out there, remind me I'm committing to this idea and figuring out how to make this reality, because St. Louis has some really sweet spots that people need to see, just like Pittsburgh does. And we are the cities that people forget about sometimes. And there are so many others, so many amazing places to go visit. So let's figure out how to make this a thing.
Okay, definitely.
Okay. So it has been fabulous having you here. I see our next guest waiting in the wings, and I look forward to continuing to make the world better. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, and I am now going to work on is a artist of amazing and just like a fabulous human being. And my screen is once again doing this. I'm not going to share what you're showing. So hold on just a moment while I once again try and knock the bugs out of the stream. Thank you. Ooh. The dog heard the Cheerios and is quite excited. Quite excited. We say thank you the cutest way we know how, and it is with a doggo. So 365 Days of Astronomy is brought to you by you. You are what allow us to do this show year after year, episode after episode for so long. And we're so grateful that all of you are here to share this experience with us. Now, today we are streaming for 10 hours straight, celebrating, well, the 10 years that we have been doing this. Along the way, we are bringing back a whole myriad of our guests, and we will be releasing everything that we're doing today through a variety of other places, such as YouTube. If you would like to follow us on YouTube, we would like to be followed, and you can find us at youtube.com/C for community. I don't know if that's what it's for, but we're going to say it's for community /C/CosmoQuest. Now, joining me right now and now on screen is Daniela de Paulis. Welcome, Daniela. How are you doing today?
Hi, Pamela. I'm great. Thanks. I'm so happy to be here again. Thank you for inviting me, and it's always fantastic to see you. So I'm very pleased to be around.
It's amazing. And we first encountered each other back in 2009 with the International Year of Astronomy. And you are a real inspiration to me. You are someone who is an artist who twines in science and finds ways to take advantage of science tools to make art. And I'm learning to be an artist and to have seen people like you for so many years. It's just been amazing. And you are now a visiting artist. Can you share with everyone your great new gig?
Yes, Pamela, I don't know where to start. We share the same kind of anniversary in a way, because indeed we met in 2009. Also, one of my projects started in 2009, Optics, which you also hosted many times.
Yes.
And also in 2009, I got to know Astronomers Without Borders. So 10 years ago was really the start of my, let's say, the transition from my previous artwork to my astronomy-based artwork. So maybe it's interesting for people to know how did I start, because perhaps people think that it's going to be very difficult to make art with astronomy, like yourself. I follow in your posts on Facebook with your paintings, and I find them really fantastic. So
thank you.
My background, in fact, is exactly in abstract painting. So I trained as a painter at the Art Academy in Rome, in Italy, where I'm from. And I was doing also, as I said, abstract art, and eventually I moved on to video installation and more like what we call media art nowadays.
Yeah.
So initially I was working with space, but in a very different way. So also my background is in dance, in contemporary dance. So I've always been interested in space in all different ways. So from the stage, the space on the stage, and also space in the city. I moved on to space on the ocean. So this was a long-term project I was doing before I eventually started working with astronomy. And then, of course, outer space was just the most obvious, perhaps, follow-up of my work. So now I'm facing the immensity of outer space, the infinity of it, the void of it, which is scary and yet beautiful, as we know. But really, I think it was quite easy for me to transition onto working with astronomy, because I was very interested in a technology that you also know very well, called moon bounce, where we reflect radio signals of the moon, of the surface of the moon. And I thought, okay, well, I'd like to use it as part of a live performance. And as a visual artist, mostly visual artist, I was particularly interested in the visual potential of this technology. So I started working at a radio telescope here in the Netherlands, where I am based at the moment. And that really triggered my passion, my endless inspiration for astronomy and the space. I cannot see, I think once you start being fascinated by these topics, it's just impossible to exhaust your interest for what is surrounding us. We are part of this immense space, and also I've done a lot of other projects, and my most recent one is COGITO, where we send brainwaves into space, which somehow triggers a lot of philosophical debate. So I know everybody experiences it in a very different way.
Yeah.
Some people are even perceiving it as a religious project. So I'm very pleased about all these facets that people bring onto it, because it's open and yet very constructed in a way. So everything is extremely well thought of, and yet it wants to leave some space for people to have an open interpretation of the project.
Now let's step back for a second and explain what optics is. And I'm as you talk, bringing up different images and your website to help people understand the project. You are taking people's photos. Taking the one that we see most often is a test pattern. And you are working with an amateur radio transmitter person. It's an amateur radio astronomer, but they're transmitting with their telescope. So I'm not quite sure what the correct way to adjective that is. And you're bouncing these images off the moon and then receiving the images at Dwingelo Observatory in the Netherlands.
Exactly. Pamela, if you want to show some photos, please go to my website, danieladepaulis.com.
That one. Okay.
On projects, you will see optics. The reason why I'm suggesting this is because I have some photos posted on that website that are really interesting and that I would like to talk about. So if you please scroll down on the optics project, I can maybe mention a little bit how this...
Yep, I'll be there in just a moment.
Great.
So,
in the meantime, yes, just to give some background information about my project to people who don't know this technology. The moon-bounce technology allows to reflect radio signals off the moon's surface using 2 or more radio stations on Earth. So my performance called OPTICKS allows sending images to the moon and back with this technology, and the performance is highly participatory. So usually when we present it as part of Global Astronomy Month, we ask for people submission. So people from all around the world send us their photo. And this year was amazing. We got images from Nepal, from Tibet, from China, from Africa, from really all over the place. And it's always fantastic for me to see what people would like to reflect of the moon. So what kind of images they would like to send for this journey. And so what I really love about this performance is the fact that we use the technology to bring people together. So the scope is not so much the technology per se, but really using it as a way to imagine something really special, unique for the time of the performance. So joining together this imaginary spaceship, which is the radio waves that take us to the surface of the moon. So it's also very physical because, of course, radio waves are also a physical thing. So they really touch the surface of the moon and they bring us back the photos. So I think this is what makes people so excited about it. And I could never have expected when I initiated this project that I would have been performing it still for 10 years and maybe longer. So it's fantastic to see it growing together with people and the community.
And one of the pictures that you have up on your site that I was actually part of you live streaming was the photo of that Charlie Duke left on the moon. He, of course, didn't leave his only copy on the moon. He had other copies. And you were able to get a digital version of this photo and then bounce it off the moon. What was that like, getting to work with an astronaut like that? And I know you've worked with other astronauts. This is just, this particular story is so wonderful.
This is, I think, absolutely my favorite photo because, well, first of all, because as you know, I somehow invented this technology, which we call visual moonbound. So I really had the idea and I developed it during my artistic residency. So I think Charles Duke didn't know that we could do that. And he was very surprised that we sent this image to the moon and back, and he sent me a message saying, Daniela, I think it's amazing, you can do this. So of course it was fantastic to hear from him that he appreciated it so much. But the photo came about because, of course, I know about the photo he left on the surface of the moon in 1972, and I've been thinking about it for, I would say, really years. And at some point, it just happened, the possibility to contact Charles Duke through Astronomers Without Borders. And he sent us the photo without hesitating. So It was great to send his family back to the moon, especially because now the photo on the moon is probably completely bleached out. So we revived this memory, I think, for him.
And along the years, you've had people send you their own personal photos, and you've also taken on different projects. So looking just at your optics page, I'm seeing that you have birds and sea turtles. You have people's artwork. But I have to say, my favorite one of the ones that you've done, and unfortunately, it just doesn't come across very well. So I'm going to have to share the link out to the chat. You took the blue marble Earth photo and you bounced it over and over again off the moon. What's the story behind doing this particular series of images?
This work was done for the reopening of this telescope, this Dwingelo radio telescope in the Netherlands, and we had a special guest, Joe Taylor, who is a renowned radio astronomer, a Nobel Prize winner. So I had the pleasure to have my photos signed by myself and Joe Taylor as a memory of the event. So this work started it as, I guess, reflecting about the idea of our Earth disappearing in time, and so I use this technology very much as a way to transform the photo into a memory. So these high definition photos become just a memory, just the same way perhaps there would be pixels in our mind. So I like that because I think that this image is so powerful, and at the same time everybody has a very introspect image of the Earth. So we never saw the Earth from outside. We only know it through an image. So I think for me it's really about transmitting the feeling that we have a very faint knowledge of our own planet. So it's only this series of pixels in our mind, and of course this reflects on who we are as human beings. We just don't know the place where we live, and I think this creates also some perhaps sense of fragility in our life, if you like. But also it's perhaps about this idea of entropy and how, eventually perhaps connected to the idea of this second law of thermodynamics, if you like. So the ecological question of whether can we use these resources endlessly, or we are actually really our Earth is kind of leaving us behind. So I think this is what crossed my mind when I decided to use this particular photo for this technology.
And it's just a fabulous idea. And this is one of those things that in my head always separates those of us who are technically capable of making art from the person that has that thing in them. And you are definitely one of those people that has that thing. And it's just been an honor over the years to see you over and over just come up with new and beautiful ideas. And here I'm just showing the whole sequence one more time. Now one of the things that you have done over the years, as well as making art, and you've never stopped, and you're always looking for new ways to collaborate with scientists and technologies to do this, but you've also worked with Astronomers Without Borders to help find and promote other artists out there. How did you, like so many of us, get sucked into Astronomers Without Borders and helping out?
For me, it's when I first met Mike Simmons online to start with, we just I guess I immediately understood that that was a fantastic group of people I wanted to work with. So I've been a volunteer for Astronomers Without Borders for the last 10 years. So I really do my best to support this organization. And I've seen it growing so much over the years, and I love the fact that they bring astronomy to all communities, also the communities that have less technology. They do manage to bring tools to these communities to look up and somehow embrace this sky as something that really unites everybody. And this message is this universal appeal of the sky, I think, is what we definitely share, Astronomers Without Borders and I, and also, of course, the social, the attempt to overcome social economic barriers. I think it's fantastic.
And one of the things with your moon bounce, that is art that requires multiple people scattered around the world to make it happen. And I've watched as you did this, where you had people transmitting from South America, receiving in Northern Europe, and you're from Italy. And this is suddenly where we'll have on a single stream people from 5 or 6 different nations. And it takes all of us working together to create this experience. And that is a fabulous way to sum up everything that Astronomers Without Borders is about.
Yes, absolutely. And also we need the moon for the event. So, it's also reaching out into space. And that is a very concrete way of taking people to look from outside at the Earth, to kind of think of this overview effect by reaching in a very concrete way the moon during the performance. So the overview effect has also been a very inspirational topic for me. When I met Frank White in 2012 through Astronomers Without Borders, I immediately thought I would work with this concept sooner or later, and in fact, eventually it happened in my most recent project. So.
And the Overview Effect movie is now on Magellan TV, and it's available for everyone to watch finally. And I recommend everyone out there go out and watch this show if you haven't. Now, you've worked with a myriad of different institutes over the years, working on new projects. What are you working on today?
Well, my dream now would be to work with the SKA, the Square Kilometer Array organization. So I went to visit the head office last month, and they told me they are now starting a cultural program. So it is in their agenda, the possibility of having artists working at their facilities. So my plan will be to make a documentary, of course, always in an artistic form. And I hope we will collaborate at some point in the near future. And also I have some more performances of my Cogito in Space project. And so before I close this project, I would like to present it a few more times. And on top of that, I'm working on other projects that are not directly related to astronomy, but indeed they're related to the overview effect. For example, I was in Rome just last week to work on a project called The Dream of Scipio. And this project entails reconstructing the flight from the Wright brothers in 1909 over the archaeological park of Rome. Oh. And the reason why I want to reconstruct this flight is because it was the very first time in the history of cinema when they filmed aerial view from a plane. So it's the very first aerial view in film.
Wow.
Yes, so I'm trying to work now with the military aviation in Italy to reconstruct this flight using a replica of the flyer of the Wright brothers and replicate the flight over this stretch of the archaeological park in Rome. Another interesting thing is that you can see together with the so what to me fascinates me about this flight is seeing this aeroplane that in 1909 was really the future. So it was a very innovative, very pioneering object, and seeing that flying on the backdrop of ancient ruins in Rome, where you can see the aqueducts and other tombs from 2000 and more years ago. I think that contrast is quite interesting. So I'm always working on big scale projects, let's say.
And are you going to get to go to both Australia and South Africa for the SKA work?
I love to. I really would love to do that. For me, that would be the next step. And questioning, bringing together philosophical questions and innovative research is what really interests me at the moment.
That all sounds amazing. Now, if people wanted to follow everything that you're working on, where is the best place that they can go?
I'm not very good at updating my website. So usually I'm very good at posting things on social media. So Facebook, Twitter, I think they can just
And
follow
what is your handle?
Just my name on Facebook, and also on Twitter. I think it's my name. But
our mods will get it into the chat.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Pamela. I also have a little giveaway. I didn't have the time to send it to Aviva yet, but I am very happy to contribute to this campaign by offering my a still image of one of my videos called Le Voyage dans la Lune. And I will be offering the still photo from this film together with my signature.
That is fabulous. Thank you so much. And we will do that one in the last hour as a highlight. That is fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of everything that you do. I just love running into you all around the world, showing us amazing art. So until we meet again, keep doing beautiful things and putting joy and thoughtfulness into our lives.
Thanks, Pamela. It was really fantastic to see you again, and wish you great success with the campaign.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.